Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Good evening. You're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. His Excellency, the Undersecretary of the Ministry of Health for Health Affairs, assures citizens that there is no suspected case of Ebola disease in the Sultanate. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he is undeterred by Hamas warnings of renewed fighting in the Gaza war. And Iran stresses its desire to cooperate with the International Atomic Energy Agency to ensure transparency of its nuclear program. Good evening once again, and thank you for joining us. Those were the headlines, and now the news in details. The Sultanate is free from Ebola disease or any suspected case. That was emphasized by His Excellency Dr. Mohammed bin Saif Al Hosni, Undersecretary of the Ministry of Health for Health Affairs, during an extraordinary meeting of medical response sector and public health, which came to discuss Ebola disease and epidemic situation in the world. During the meeting, a Center for Crisis Management and Emergency was activated, as well as completing algorithm charts to deal with the disease. The Ministry of Health advised not to travel to Guinea, Sierra Leone and Liberia, as well as not to pay attention to rumors and to take information from its reliable sources. His Excellency Dr. Mohammed bin Saif Al Hosni, Undersecretary of the Ministry of Health for Health Affairs, said that he wants to assure citizens that there is no suspected case of Ebola disease in the Sultanate. A preparedness, emergency and epidemic center was activated, and since yesterday, the ministry is on continuous contact with Gulf setup of contagious diseases, as well as with the World Health Organization and other international bodies. He voiced an advice of not traveling to the countries affected by this disease in West Africa. Public Authority for Small and Medium Enterprises organized the training program of entrepreneurs and excellency in serving the clients, which targeted employees from 13 governmental bodies who deal directly with SMEs owners. The 14th edition of the training program aimed to enhance the entrepreneurs' concept as well as their individual skills. The 5-day program will discuss a number of topics such as entrepreneurship basics and entrepreneurs' specifications, in addition to rewinding some experiences in entrepreneurship. Muscat Securities Market MSM General Index today added 14.6 points, comprising a rise by 0.20% to close at 7,335 points. The trading value today stood at 510 million Omani Riyals, comprising a decline by 22.7% compared to the last session, which stood at 6.6 million Omani Riyals. The report released by MSM pointed out that the market value rose by 0.19% to reach about 15.4 billion Omani Riyals. The report added that the value of shares bought by non-Omani investors, reached more than 1.92 million Omani Riyals, comprising 37.5%. The value of shares sold by non-Omani investors reached more than 1.4 million Omani Riyals, comprising 27.5%. The net non-Omani investment rose by 10% to 512,000 Omani Riyals. Indicator of weekly recruitment activity for national manpower at the private sector by Ministry of Manpower indicated that 1,266 citizens of various specializations were employed in a number of professions and occupations as per approved work contracts during last week. Construction sector absorbed 29.7%, wholesale and retail business sector, vehicle repair, motorcycles, private and family commodities constituted constituted 20.7%, and mining and inquiries accounted for 14.4%. On the other side, wages ranged from 325 to 7.020 Omani Rials for universities graduates and between 325 and 2,829 Omani Rials for diploma holders and above. Oman Consolidated Contracting Company recruited 30 citizens, which was the highest this week, followed by Moqaizina Occidental Company Omani branch appointed 29 citizens, and followed by Taus Company for Industrial Services, which recruited 23 citizens. The annual gathering of the cultural attaches was held today at the Ministry of Higher Education to discuss different issues concerning students sent for scholarship abroad. More details in the following report by Sultan bin Saif As-Sarai.
The Ministry of Higher Education held the annual meeting of the cultural attaches in the ministry's premises, which was headed by His Excellency Dr. Abdullah bin Muhammad Al-Sarmi, Under-Secretary of the Ministry of Higher Education, where this meeting came to discuss the challenges that faces the cultural attaches and to introduce the new projects which aim to facilitate students' services.
We sit together and try to lay down all the issues that might affect our scholarship students to these countries, and we try to come up with a solution so that we have a very, very encouraging, very good environment for our students.
The meeting shed light on various topics such as updating and completing the students' data, the academic follow-up, and the electronic link between the ministry and the cultural attaches in order to facilitate all students' procedures and to help them in the right time. Also, the meeting discussed the importance of the continuous meetings between the students and the cultural attaches to know their needs and their problems abroad.
This meeting was mainly considering trying to do everything possible to make and facilitate the students' registration now. You know that most of our students now are kind of in the process of getting their approval to go to some of those universities abroad. And we are hoping with this meeting we are trying, the Ministry of Higher Education with all the people concerned, trying to get together and work out the best way to make that go smoothly.
At the end of the meeting, visual presentation about scholarships in general was presented, and then an open discussion held to exchange experience between the cultural attaches. Studying and discussing students' matters by the ministry gives them faith to facilitate their procedures and to feel comfortable abroad. Sultan bin Saif Sarai, Ministry of Higher Education, Muscat.
Still to come in our news bulletin. Kenya is closing its borders to travelers from Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone in response to the deadly Ebola outbreak.
من هنا تبدأ أسطر الحكاية. تقاليدها راسخة كالجبال. أصالتها مضرب مثل في كل مكان. بساطتها ليس لها مثيل. لا حدود لكرمها. حاضرها مشرق متجدد. مهرجان الصلالة السياحي 2014 من 30 من يوليو إلى 6 من سبتمبر.
While Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said today he was undeterred by Hamas warnings of renewed fighting in the Gaza war, pledging Israel would hold fast to its security needs in indirect talks with the Palestinians in Cairo. Hamas rejected yesterday as insufficient offers made in Cairo to Palestinian negotiators seeking to end Israel's offensive in the Gaza Strip and raised the possibility of renewed fighting when the current truce expires. With a 5-day ceasefire due to expire later on Monday, negotiators were to reconvene in Cairo to seek an end to 5 weeks of hostilities that have killed more than 2,000 people. United Nations Nuclear Agency Chief Yukiya Amano began talks in Tehran today with President Hassan Rouhani and other senior officials to push for progress in a long-running investigation into Iran's suspected atomic bomb research. Amano's trip comes ahead of an August 25th deadline for Iran to provide information relevant to the International Atomic Energy Agency's IAEA inquiry into what it calls the possible military dimensions of the country's disputed nuclear program. The issue is closely tied to high-profile nuclear negotiations with 6 world powers aimed at resolving the decade-old standoff over Tehran's atomic activities, suspected by the West of having military objectives. 4 members of Al-Qaeda organization and a Yemeni soldier were killed in clashes which erupted in Hadramaut governorates east of the country. A Yemeni military source said insurgents had been monitored and discovered in a house in Al-Qutn city in the governorate, adding that the military unit attacked its members after surrounding the house. The sources pointed out that the members of the military unit clashed with the insurgents and managed to kill 4 of them and to arrest 5 others. 1 soldier was killed and 5 others wounded during the clashes. A pro-Russian separatist shot down a Ukrainian warplane in eastern Ukraine overnight into today, while at least 10 civilians were killed in fighting involving artillery and mortars in the rebel-held city of Donetsk. The 4-month conflict in Ukraine's Russian-speaking east has reached a critical phase, with Kiev and Western governments watching nervously to see if Russia will intervene in support of the increasingly besieged rebels, something denied by Moscow. A Ukrainian military spokesman said that the rebels had hit a MiG-29 fighter jet over the Luhansk region, one of 2 regions where entrenched separatists are fighting a rear guard action to hold off government forces advancing on their positions. Flash floods and mudslides following heavy rains have killed at least 53 people in Nepal over the past 3 days and cut off remote communities in the mountains. The landslides and floodings were triggered by annual monsoon rains since Wednesday, causing rain-soaked earth and rocks to crash down on homes while rivers swelled and washed away low-lying villages. Nepal's Home Ministry said 75 people were unaccounted for and 36 others were in hospitals and medical centers. Officials said more than 25% of Nepal's 75 administrative districts were hit by landslides for floods. About 3,500 people have been rescued and housed in school and community buildings, officials said. Kenyan officials say the country is closing its borders to travelers from Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone in response to the deadly Ebola outbreak. The Kenyan health minister said that the country is closing its borders to travels from Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone, the nations most affected by the worst ever Ebola outbreak. National carrier Kenya Airways also said it would suspend its flights to Freetown and Monrovia when the ban takes effect on Wednesday. The move comes amid an international appeal to help contain the deadly virus, which has already killed 1,145 people across West Africa this year. And now for the general weather forecast. Cloudy skies will prevail over the coastal areas of the Governorate of the Far and nearby mountains with chances of intermittent drizzle occasionally accompanied by thunder showers, rain. Rest of the Sultanate will have clear to partly cloudy skies with chances of rain over parts of the Hajar Mountains. Winds will be the southerly to southwesterly, moderate to active along the coast of Arabian Sea, while it will be southeasterly light to moderate in the rest of the Sultanate. Seas along the coastal areas of Arabian Sea will be rough with a maximum wave height of 4 meters. And along the rest of the coast, it will be slight with a maximum wave height of 1.25 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television, and now before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Excellency, the Undersecretary of the Minister of Health for Health Affairs assures citizens that there is no suspected case of Ebola disease in the Sultanate. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he is undeterred by Hamas warnings of renewed fighting in the Gaza war. And Iran stresses its desire to cooperate with the International Atomic Energy Agency to ensure transparency of its nuclear program. With that, we come to an end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, it's good night.